Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we're taking a look at the Alabaster Lord's Sword. This is a weapon that is dropped by the Alabaster Lord in the Lake of Rot, and you will need to raise the platforms in order to access him. This weapon is one that I honestly cannot recommend in good faith. There are a number of issues with the weapon, so we'll get started on those in a minute. Let's start off with the basics of this weapon. This weapon requires 16 strength, 12 dexterity, and 18 intelligence to wield, and it weighs 8 units. The skill of the weapon is Alabaster Lord's Pull, and you are stuck with that because this is a somber weapon. At plus 10 it has a physical base damage of 313 and a magic base damage of 93. And it will have a B scaling in strength, D in dexterity, and D in intelligence. So with this weapon on the PvE side of things, because that's where you will primarily probably use it, it does have a 20% damage boost to gravity type enemies. That will include Estelle, the Falling Star Beasts, and both Onyx and Alabaster Lord variants. Now, this weapon, as far as the pros are concerned, the damage on it is decent. The moveset is fine. It's the standard clunky greatsword moveset that we all know and tolerate. If you're good with one of them, you're fine with all of them. They are pretty straightforward. There's really not a whole lot to say in terms of the moveset. The big thing with it is your backstep attacks are going to come out quite quickly and will be good at chasing people down, and your R2s are a horizontal sweep. So if your opponent is rolling around you, you can unlock and smack them with an R2. Beyond that, the skill of the weapon is, it's fine. Alabaster Lord's Pull is basically Gravitas, but with a larger area of effect and more damage on that area of effect as well. And with that said, it is not more damage overall, and the reason for that is because you lose something with this version of the skill. Compared to the regular version of Gravitas, or the version of it that is on the katana, that I'm blanking on the name of, compared to that, it just leaves a bit to be desired, because when you thrust the sword into the ground, the initial windup on the thrust is much slower, and the hyper armor is unfortunately just not there. On top of that, though, when you thrust the sword into the ground, you can damage your opponent with that, but the burst from the area of effect afterwards also comes out slower. So, unfortunately, if you do that, you lose that ability to combo it. Whereas with the standard version of Gravitas and with the version on the katana that I'm still blanking on the name of, correct me in the comments, please. It's driving me crazy right now. With that version of the skill, when you thrust the sword into the ground and you hit your opponent with that thrust, you will have a guaranteed combo with the area of effect. But unfortunately, you don't have that with this. The standard Gravitas and the Meteoric Ore Blade, which is the name of the katana, by the way, they can combo, and with the Meteoric Ore Blade, you just won't be able to follow up with a guaranteed R1 or R2 following. There's a chance that you can land the R2, but it's far from a guarantee. But because you can combo the initial thrust and the area of effect, you deal more damage than this thing. So even though this has a larger bit of damage on the initial burst from its area of effect, it won't compare to 2 hits. 2 hits are just better than 1 in 99% of cases. So it kind of just is what it is. It's unfortunate, but it's what we're stuck with. Aside from that, though, there's really nothing to say as far as pros of the weapon. Even the skill ended up not being a pro, considering it's actually worse. It has a benefit, sure. That larger area of effect is nice. It's fun to be able to throw your opponent on the ground from a distance with it, but that doesn't change the fact that it's just actually worse. So, you know, it is what it is. Now with the rest of the cons, this weapon is unfortunately the shortest weapon in the class. That's not necessarily a good thing. If it were a little faster to make up for it, that'd be neat, but we don't have that. It's got the standard clunky Greatsword moveset, so it's kind of boring in that regard as well. And overall, the main thing that I mentioned about this weapon, the first pro that I mentioned being that the damage is decent, well, unfortunately, the damage is actually just decent. Because if you compare it to other weapons in the class, like Elden's Steeple, that weapon is also made for a strength intelligence build. It's made for a muscle mage type build. And it will have a C scaling in strength and a B scaling in dexterity, if I'm recalling properly. And with that, it also has decently high base damage, and its skill is a buff. So its damage output overall is higher, and it has longer range. So really the only unique thing going on here is the skill, and the skill is a bit lackluster. So it's just a bit of a disappointment of a weapon, to be perfectly honest. And then comparing it to another weapon for intelligence builds, the Darkmoon Greatsword, I don't care much for the Darkmoon Greatsword. I don't like it in this game. I don't like its R2s. Yes, they deal a lot of damage, but they're not very useful. I would still say that that's a better weapon than this, which is really a shame, because I really was very disappointed in the Darkmoon Greatsword, but to have to say that this is even worse, that kind of hurts. So, this weapon, it just is an unfortunate weapon. It could have been so much more, they could have done so much more with it. Even if the speed of the skill, if Alabaster Lord's pull was a little bit faster to the point where the initial thrust would combo into the area of effect, I would be thrilled with that, and this weapon would be one I'd be able to recommend, because having that combo would be great, but it just doesn't have it. So, unfortunately, this is what we're stuck with, this is what's left, and I cannot recommend this weapon. It's not necessarily a terrible weapon, but it's not a good one. So, take from that what you will, and that's really all I've got. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video or found it helpful in one way or another. I hope if you are planning on using this weapon that maybe I've persuaded you to try something different like Elden's Steeple or the Darkmoon Greatsword. If you are interested in those, I'll have links to those videos at the end of this one. And yeah, let me know what you all think about this thing. Let me know if I was a bit harsh on it. And if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you all next time.